church is the face of the earth, and its roof is the sky up above, where all men can worship regardless of birth at the altar of brotherly love. My church is under the tree. My church is over the sea. And deep in my mind, may I always find my church in the heart of me. The roll of my church is all colors and creeds, religions too broad to confine. It's not what you say, but the weight of your deeds that makes you a brother of mine. My church is under the tree. My church is over the sea. And deep in my mind, may I always find my church in the heart of me. The prayer of my church is so old that it's new, the same as it always has been. Let me do to others as I'd have them do if I were the others. Amen. My church is under the tree. My church is over the sea. And deep in my mind, may I always find my church in the heart of me. My church in the heart of me.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Sunday morning service of All Peoples. I am Alan Godsave, a member of the Board of
Alan, you were muted. If you could unmute yourself and start from the beginning. Sorry about that.
Good morning, everyone. Let me try this again. Welcome to the Sunday morning service of All Peoples. I am Alan Godsave, a member of the Board of Trustees. Unitarian Universalism is a liberal religion that promotes freedom of belief and respect for all people. Yes, we are very much about individual freedom, but we are also very much about individual responsibility and the power of the beloved community. We are united by an ongoing commitment to making the world a more humane and peaceful place. If you are visiting with us, we invite you to contact the church office to speak with our membership coordinator, Janet Taylor, about receiving our newsletter and email updates. And please visit our church website and Facebook page. I have 3 announcements. One of the easiest ways to donate to the church is by text. If you would like to learn more about donating by text, please call the church office for instructions. It's very simple, and you only register once. Coffee chats continue every weekday morning, Monday through Thursday from 9 to 9:30 a.m. and happy hour on Fridays at 5 p.m. The links are on our website. This Wednesday, our special guest will be Dr. Katie Donner, our choir director and frequent contributor to our Sunday services. Finally, due to a scheduling conflict with Open Campus, our spiritual practices group, Building Better Angels, will not meet Monday evening. Instead, they will be meeting this evening at 7 p.m. Everyone is invited. Contact Nancy Thomas or me for a link to the Zoom meeting. And now to the sanctuary. Thank you.
Hello. Coming to me, I hope. Hello. I hope I'm not muted. Am I not? I'm Arlene Tuttle, and I have been a member for quite some years now of the All Peoples Unitarian Universalist Congregation. And I'd like you now, invite all of you now to light the chalice with me. And as I light the chalice, to read the words of delightfully so, the Reverend Emeritus Reverend Elmwood Sturtevant. So hopefully it will work, and I will light the chalice. It didn't. It won't. Ah. If you would read along with me, please, I hope you can see the chalice has been lit. We light our chalice this morning in celebration of the light that calls us to look at ourselves and see not just who we are, but who we can be. We light our chalice in celebration of our creativity, our capacity for beauty and surprise, our originality and alternatives. More than novelty, creativity finds meaning in the mundane, order in chaos, possibility in crisis, hope in the future. Creativity calls us to produce from within ourselves that which enhances life, that which overcomes limits with imagination, that creation itself may be enhanced. Thank you. And I'll put it here. And now I think we just heard the lovely voice of one of our people in our service today, and that was Dawn Landis.
Hello.
Hello, Dawn.
Hello, everyone.
Dawn is a singer and songwriter with Louisville roots, currently living in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, with her husband, young daughter, and pup. Dawn has performed internationally. Her sixth studio album, Row, was released in October 2020 and features songs from a new musical she has written based on the story of, listen to this one, Tori Murden McClure's historic transatlantic road. It's exciting. Talk of creativity. But many of us are a little bit more familiar with our own Danica Novgorodoff. Danica is an artist and a writer from Louisville, Kentucky, who spent years living in Brooklyn, New York, but she's home now. Anyway, her graphic novels include A Late Freeze, Slow Storm, Refresh, included in Best American Comics, and The Undertaking of Lily Chen. Her most recent graphic novel, released in October, is Long Way Down. Just thought I'd show you that's what's on my desk. Anyway, Danica is currently working on a graphic novel about climate change with a climate journalist, and working on a children's book about the philosopher and naturalist Humboldt, and a cookbook about rice with a Harlem chef. Are they not creative women? Thank you to Danica.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having Dawn and me at this wonderful church service. We're so glad to be here with you. Dawn and I have been friends since we met in high school at Ballard around 1996, and we lived together in New York for several years, and we've watched each other's creative lives grow and change, and we've collaborated together on many projects. And we had a lot of fun putting this service together and are excited to be here with you today. So I'm going to start with a reading by Christian Wyman. I'm going to share my screen. There we go. Can you see it, the reading? Okay. So you can see the Christian Wyman reading?
Yes.
Okay, so this
Share.
is, Christian Wyman is a poet, and he was a thesis advisor at Yale Divinity School to a good friend of mine named Juana. And that's how I was introduced to his work. And this passage is from a book of his essays called My Bright Abyss, Meditation of a Modern Believer. And just to give some context, he's coming from a very Christian background. He was raised in an evangelical family in Texas. So when he refers to grace, I'm assuming he's talking about it with the religious or spiritual connotation that it implies. But he's better known as a poet than as a theologian. And I first read this passage when I was a writer in residence at Bernheim Forest 4 years ago. So I'll read it now. What I crave at this point in my life is to speak more clearly what it is that I believe. It is not that I am tired of poetic truth, or that I feel it to be somehow weaker or less true than reason. The opposite is the case. Inspiration is to thought what grace is to faith, intrusive, transcendent, transformative, but also evanescent, and all too often anomalous. A poem can leave its maker at once more deeply seized by existence and in a profound way alienated from it. For as the act of making ends, as the world that seemed to overbrim its boundaries becomes once more merely the world, it can be very difficult to retain any faith in that original moment of inspiration at all. The memory of that momentary blaze, in fact, and the art that issued from it can become a reproach to the fireless life in which you find yourself most of the time. Grace is no different. Artistic inspiration is sometimes an act of grace, though by no means always. To experience grace is one thing, to integrate it into your life is quite another. What I crave now is that integration, some speech that is true to the transcendent nature of grace, yet adequate to the hard reality in which daily faith operates. I crave, I suppose, the poetry and the prose of knowing. So I'm an artist and a writer, and I make graphic novels, comics, and other types of illustrated books and stories for kids and adults. I've published 4 graphic novels now, but they take a really, really long time to make. And often in the past 10 years or so, at least before having babies and before the pandemic, I would go away to an artist residency for a couple weeks or even a couple months, where I would have time and space to work outside of the normal routines and distractions of my everyday life. The residency at Bernheim was somewhat unusual in that it was just me alone, rather than in a group of artists where you would share meals with people and get to talk about your work sometimes. So I was at Bernheim for almost 2 months, and I was struggling with a project. I was trying to write and illustrate a book about volcanoes and about my experiences living briefly near a volcano in Ecuador, and about how much I loved the volcano, except that I had never seen that volcano or any volcano erupt, and I had never climbed the volcano to its summit. So where was the story? Where was the drama, the climactic moment that changes the character's life? So I was getting increasingly frustrated with the project, having all of those crushing feelings of self-doubt that artists feel. And every morning I would walk with my dog to the top of a hill in the woods just before sunrise, so I could see the sky change color and smell the moss and visit the trees. And then I'd walk back down and have breakfast and start trying to write again. I was, like Christian Wyman wrote, craving at that point in my life to speak more clearly what it is that I believed. Inspiration, Wyman says, is like spiritual grace, like the moment the spirit moves you and you roll around on the floor and you speak in tongues. I don't really know if Unitarians usually do that, but inspiration is intrusive, transcendent, transformative, but also evanescent and all too often anomalous, which is to say that inspiration is that aha moment, that lightning bolt of insight, that trance that all artists seek. When you feel like your art or these words are not even coming from you, but are flowing through you from some mysterious force. When it feels effortless to create art. But these moments come almost never, very rarely. I'll speak for myself. There are artists who have claimed to be merely a conduit for their creative message rather than the creator. In the 11th century AD, Hildegard of Bingen, one of the greatest religious figures of medieval times, received a vision describing the divine order of the cosmos and humankind's place in it. The vision came to her, she explained, through celestial flames descending from the gaping vault of heaven and pouring directly into her brain. She described these flames as tongues of fire and transformed them into manuscripts and music. The artist Paul Klee describes the artist as a tree. Quote, standing at his appointed place, the trunk of the tree, he, the artist, does nothing other than gather and pass on what comes to him from the depths. He neither serves nor rules, he transmits. His position is humble, and the beauty at the crown is not his own, he is merely a channel, unquote. So apparently there are some genius artists that step into the studio every day and hear the voice of God, but I don't really know who these people are. Mostly I find myself, you step into the studio and you make a to-do list and you check your email for like 3 hours, and then you drink a lot of caffeine and you call the electric company and you look at your to-do lists again, and then you open some tabs for articles you should read on your browser, but you never actually read them, and then you do the dishes, and then your day is half over, and you sit down to write or draw, but you can only get a couple of awkward sentences out or half a sketch, and then the day is over and you beat yourself up because you didn't get anything done. And then you do that again for the next 65 days or so. So I spent almost those 2 months in a cabin in the woods at Bernheim, and I didn't finish the manuscript that I intended to finish. I wrote a lot, but I think I may have gotten further from the completion of the project than when I started. But what I did do was some little watercolors of objects I found in the woods while I was walking. And I did walk to the top of a small Kentucky hill every morning. What I wanted to find was a volcanic eruption. What I found instead were some little rocks and pine cones. And I found a ritual of walking up a hill in a forest at sunrise over and over and over again. And after doing that for weeks and weeks, I felt like I'd found some kind of grace. It was a small, quiet, humble grace. The world wasn't overbrimming its boundaries. As Wyman says, that grace or inspiration can make you feel like when that lightning bolt hits or that volcano erupts. But for a time there, I felt that the daily act of walking, just like the daily act of sitting down and trying to write or draw, was like going each day to greet my gods, the trees. It was just showing up again and again. Showing up at the hilltop or your desk doesn't guarantee that God or inspiration will appear. But those small, quiet rituals are necessary to integrate grace and inspiration into your life or your art. So Dawn and I have been joining my friend Juana, the one who is a theology PhD, and she introduced me to the poet Christian Wyman. We've been joining her on Sunday mornings throughout the past year for an online coffee hour, as we call it, where we talk about poetry and theology. And one morning, Juana introduced Psalm 139 for us to read and discuss. And I love a lot of the Psalms because they're so poetic. And this one is very much about creating and language and words. And as Christian Wyman says, the poetry and the prose of knowing. But still, some of the language in it, the language of, "O Lord," can feel a little uncomfortable or inaccessible for a Unitarian raised agnostic like me. In the case of this psalm, the omniscient Lord felt to me oppressive and sort of unnerving. So I decided to read it, replacing the word Lord with land. And something about that felt very right to me. So I'll finish by reading this psalm and taking a tiny bit of creative license. O land, you have searched me and known me. You know when I sit up and when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from far away. You search out my path and my lying down and are acquainted with all my ways. Even before a word is on my tongue, O land, you know it completely. You hem me in behind and before and lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is so high that I cannot attain it. For it was you who formed my inward parts. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, that I know very well. My frame was not hidden for you when I was being made in secret intricately woven in the depths of the earth. Your eyes beheld my unformed substance. In your book were written all the days that were formed for me, when none of them as yet existed. How weighty to me are your thoughts, O land. How vast is the sum of them. I try to count them. They are more than the sand. I come to the end. I am still with you. And now Arlene will do the joys and concerns.
And Dawn, there she's the lovely one.
Thank you, Arlene. So as Arlene mentioned at the beginning here, for the last 7 years, I've been writing songs for a musical about Louisvillian Tori Murden McClure. If you're not familiar with her, she made history as the first woman to row and first American to row solo across the Atlantic in 1999. And she wrote a memoir about it called A Pearl in the Storm. I feel like I've been living in that memoir for a very long time. People often hear her story and ask, why? Why would she do that? Why would you volunteer 3 months of your life to live alone on the Atlantic Ocean? 3 months without communication from the outside world? Tori's favorite rebuttal is, because it's there. I think she did it to commune with nature, to put herself in a place to learn something. Celtic scholar John O'Donohue says that in the Celtic way of seeing the world, the soul is the place where the imagination lives. The revelations of nature come to us by way of imagination. That is what expands the soul. For imagination needs the cosmos to feed on. It longs for relationships that stretch the soul. Every morning, when I leave the house to walk my dog, I find myself in an ongoing, soul-stretching relationship with the natural world. It's the same love affair Annie Dillard had with her suburban neighborhood and her masterpiece, Pilgrim at Tinker Creek. It's what inspired the folk singer Jimmy Driftwood to sing, "The floor of my church is the face of the earth. Its roof is the sky up above, where all can worship regardless of birth, at the altar of brotherly love." That was the song you heard at the beginning. Nature is muse to even the most skeptical of us. Barry Lopez was not one of those skeptics. He was an American nature writer, essayist, and modern mystic who passed away recently. I've always loved his work and bring him up today because to me, he really embodied the creative and spiritual life. I'd like to share a little bit of his writing with you now. Here, let me share my screen. Let's see. Shift. Okay, there we go. He writes, "At the end of my senior year in high school, I accompanied my classmates to a Jesuit retreat house at Cornwall-on-Hudson, New York. I was fixated at the time on leading a life like Teilhard de Chardin, the Jesuit paleoanthropologist, a life of inquiry into secular and sacred mystery, and a life of service to God and man. We spent 3 days in prayer, silence, and contemplation in order to become more certain each of us was taking the right next step as we prepared for college. I hoped to return to the city convinced that my future lay with the Jesuit order, but that wasn't what happened. I felt no calling. I entered instead the University of Notre Dame, declaring aeronautical engineering as my major. It turned out that aeronautical engineering was not my calling either. By the middle of my freshman year, with some pointed advice from my physics professor, I came to see that I was enthralled not with the mechanics of engineering, but with the metaphors of flight. So I enrolled in the College of Arts and Letters and there took up writing. So Lopez became a renowned travel writer, going to places like the Galapagos, the South Pole, Kenya. And he says, in those many years of travel, long after I had lost touch with my Catholic practice, I continued to rely on the centrality of a life of prayer, which I broadly took to be a continuous, respectful attendance to the presence of the divine. Prayer was one's daily effort to be incorporated within that essence. So I feel a kinship with Lopez and his seeker's spirit, how his active prayer became writing, putting pen to paper. I know that's what I hope for at best when I write a song. focusing my respectful attendance to the presence of the divine, the universe, the spirit, whatever we want to call it, for long enough that it becomes a song. As Mary Oliver so beautifully said, attention is the beginning of devotion. That seems to be the seed of so many creative acts. A lot of artist friends of mine across disciplines have to carve out space and time for themselves to do this work, to pay attention, to be in respectful attendance of the sacred mystery. If we're lucky, we'll get a poem out of it, a painting or a lyric. Singer-songwriter Mary Gauthier says writing songs is like fishing. You have to show up at the pond, you have to cast your line and hope for the best. Maybe you'll catch inspiration in the cosmic stream, maybe not, but it definitely won't happen if you don't show up. There was a time when I thought maybe I could be an Orthodox nun. I spent a week with the nuns of New Skeet in upstate New York on a self-imposed writing retreat. I met a nun there who became a mentor to me. I was attracted to the nuns' lives, in part because of their devotion, and I hoped some of that might rub off on me or make its way into some of my songs. It made its way into the songs, but I didn't become a nun. I did appreciate the daily rituals of morning matins and evening vespers, both of which involved a lot of singing. Singing for me is a sort of prayer. It's no coincidence that most churches and cathedrals are architecturally designed for singing, chanting, and praising. It feels really good to sing in a chamber where one voice can be as loud as 20, and a choir at full volume can sound and feel almighty. I feel mighty when I sing a song from the Roe musical, from Tori's perspective. I guess, like Barry Lopez, I'm attracted to the metaphor of it all. I certainly won't be rowing myself across the Atlantic anytime soon, but I can sing about it like I did. There's a lot to mine from Tori's time spent on the ocean, the poetry it inspired in her, that inspired a musical, that inspired these words today, and who knows what's next. I love the chain reaction that a creative act can set in motion. Tori continues to devote herself to soul-stretching adventures of all kinds. In 1989, she got her Master's of Divinity at Harvard. There's a metaphysical, even spiritual reckoning that takes place over the course of her journey in the musical, and it comes to a head in a song called The Theology of Adventure, named for her thesis in divinity school. It explores much of what Barry Lopez learned from the natural world when he said, "Our obligation toward the land is simple, to approach it with an uncalculating mind, with an attitude of regard. Be alert for its openings, for that moment when something sacred reveals itself within the mundane, and you know the land knows you're there." Over to you, Arlene.
Oh, I hate to follow that. Good. And my part at this time, yes, as we said and mentioned before, we all know the building is closed now for gathering in person, and that hurts. Well, you do miss, and I sure do, the smiles and greetings and the hugs. But the work of our congregation goes on. And just read about in the tapestry just how much of this continues to go on. And for that work, we depend on your contributions. Those can be sent through our website, as Alan had mentioned, or a check directly to the office. And we thank you. Thank you so much for your support in that. And now something that is going on now. Lisa or Agnes, would you want to tell us all about what's going on? Maybe, there you go.
Okay, am I good now? Okay, I don't know about you all, but when I woke up this morning and it was cold and there was more snow on the ground, I just had that little twinge of cabin fever. And then I remembered, well, I'm in luck because the auction opens today at 1 o'clock. So our cabin fever auction, 1 o'clock, opens today online.
So think about it. If you're like me, you want to cure your sweet tooth. I mean, oh my gosh, the things that are available in the auction site, pies, cakes, wonderful food. And then, as always, you got to kind of figure out how to work all those pounds off, you know? Well, don't worry. The auction has it covered for you. We've got events with hiking and biking, and there's no excuse. if your bike isn't working, because Rick can fix that. Yes, you can bid on your bike to be tuned up. And then, of course, after a long day of eating sweets and working off those pounds, you're going to relax. Go somewhere to just let your mind go and relax. So think about all the different vacation homes we have up for your availability.
But you can't bid unless you register. So our plea today, your takeaway, register on the website. By 1 p.m. you'll be entered into a drawing for a $50 Kroger gift card, because, well, everybody has to eat.
That's true.
And when you register, please register with your credit card. Those are your two takeaways: register and bid today.
And remember, it's for the good of the church.
Back to you, Arlene. Thank you.
Thanks.
Really not so much back to me, but I'm hoping we can get to Dawn and Danica again. Thank you.
Hi, Danica. For this portion of the day, we thought we would ask each other a couple of questions. So I think I'll start. Danica, how do you create an inspiring environment for your practice?
Well, let's see. One thing that has been hard to come by lately, because I never leave the house and no one does, is solitude is very important for me, to have some real alone time and space to work. And then, as you can probably see behind me, I have a cork board where I put some inspirational, things, some drawings that I've made, or some ideas, or just notes and that kind of thing. I like to have all the tools I need around me, all my art supplies and things, but not too much clutter, which has also been a challenge lately. Got a very cluttered space. And yeah, I like to have all my books. I get a lot of inspiration from books, and I like to have the books and images around me. And then, as we've talked about, getting out into the woods or going walking, even if it's not in the woods. I think I do my best thinking when I'm walking. And so I've been trying to go out for a hike by myself once a month now that I'm in Kentucky.
That's great. I stole this question from Krista Tippett. So for all you On Being listeners, you might recognize this one. How do you define beauty?
That is, of course, I'm going to say it's very subjective, especially in art, maybe less so in nature, because, not too many people can contest a beautiful landscape or, a beautiful sunrise or something. But especially in art, I would say it's so subjective. For example, like a minimalist color field painting. Someone might think it's sublimely beautiful, and someone might think it's empty and boring. And I've thought both of those things about the same painting at different times. So, and then there's like learned beauty, the things that culture tells us we should think of it as beautiful. And sometimes we need to question that. And then there's a more spontaneous beauty that you just feel it in your soul. And to me, often something I find beautiful will inspire me to make something or give me an idea for something in my own work. And that's kind of how I know I'm in the presence of beauty. And then on the other hand, sometimes in nature, I've seen things so beautiful that I think, why bother making art when no one could really make anything that compares with the beauty of the natural world?
Well, do you think beauty exists for a reason?
It's funny that you would use the word reason, I think, because in a way I feel like beauty is beyond reason, sort of beyond logic. But I think that the reason that beauty exists is that it gives meaning to the world. It's like saying, we don't want to just survive, we want to thrive. And thriving means living in a world with beauty, both human-made art and the beauty of the natural world intact and preserved. So Dawn, where do you find inspiration?
Truth or dare? Dare. No, just kidding.
Where do you find inspiration?
I mean, like we said, walking in the natural world is very inspiring. I often get inspired by an image, uh, if it's even an overheard image or an image I read about in the newspaper. There's something striking about an image that usually catapults for me a whole idea or like sets the stage for a story to develop in my mind. Or I know a lot of songwriters steal bits of conversations that they overhear, so I'm always listening. Be careful what you say around me. It might have not been a song. But yeah, imagery, really, it's for me, what I latch onto and what stays with me afterwards. Yeah.
And do you think of your creative work as spiritual?
The creation part, yes. The work part, no. It's funny that you have like a spiritual practice and an artistic practice, because so much of it is about the practice of it all, like developing the muscle of it all, and it's not always, it's work. Sometimes it's work, like the Mary Gauthier thing about going fishing. There's a lot of time spent waiting around, discarding ideas or just waiting for inspiration to strike. And that part's not as much fun. But when it does, then yes, that feels somehow divine to me.
And can you describe a time that you caught a fish and you felt inspired, or you felt moved by the spirit?
Yeah. Well, I mentioned in my little talk about the nuns of New Skeet. I spent some time at a monastery, and I went there, and I had a dream. Some of my songs come from dreams, and mainly because of the crazy imagery in them. And there is a image in this dream of, I woke up and it was like I had just read a really weird children's story or something. Like I had a whole image of this woman walking through the woods searching for the sound of this bird, but she got lost. And I just thought, I have to write this. Like, this is, thank you. Like, I must write this. And that became the song called Bluebird, which later became the name of an album called Bluebird. So I felt very blessed by that dream and that image. Yeah. Shall we read a children's story now?
Yes. It is time for the
Speaking of images, I really love this is a book that I discovered in one of those little libraries. People make those little libraries on their streets, and both Danica and I have toddlers, so always looking for good books, and I really liked the drawings in this, and the message really rings true for creative thinking and justifying creative thinking. And Danica pointed out the other day that it's also great for quarantine. This is a great quarantine book, so I hope you enjoy it, whatever age of a kid you are. So I'll read it, and Danica will. So this is Three Pebbles and a Song by Eileen Spinelli, pictures by S.D. Schindler. Oh, wait, let me follow along because there are a few pages, right, that aren't. 1 second. Across the moonlit fields, crackly old leaves twirled and skittered, and so did Moses. As he danced, his mama came bustling by. "What are you doing, Moses?" Mama asked. "I'm twirling and skittering," said Moses. "Snow's coming," Mama sighed. "We need food. Warm things for the nest, gathering's best." So Moses set off to gather. But as the wind shick-a-wished through the papery stalks of corn, Moses couldn't resist joining in its whistly song. As he sang, his papa came hurrying by. "What are you doing, Moses?" Papa asked. "I'm singing and humming a whistly song," said Moses. "Snow's coming," Papa squealed. "We need food. Warm things for the nest, gathering's best." So Moses set off to gather. A patch of pebbles gleamed beside the creek. Pebbles were not food. They would not keep a nest warm. But Moses couldn't resist picking one up. Moses tossed the pebble into the air. He caught it. Moses picked up another pebble. He caught both. He tossed them. Then 3 pebbles in the air. Catch a toss, catch a toss, catch a toss. His sister Missy came scurrying by. What are you doing, Moses? Missy asked. I'm tossing and catching and tossing, said Moses. Snow's coming, Missy yipped. We need food. Warm things for the nest. Gathering fast. Snow came. Thick and fast it fell and fell. Moses scampered back to the nest. Mama was there. She had gathered an apron full of crumbs. Papa was there. He had gathered 4 soft rags and a sack full of corn. Missy was there. She had gathered 5 raisins. But Moses had gathered only a dance, a song, and 3 gleaming pebbles. Ever so slowly, the wintry days and nights passed. Outside, the snow lay cold and deep. But thanks to Papa's soft rags, the nest was warm. Thanks to his corn and Mama's crumbs, there was plenty to eat. And thanks to Missy's raisins, there was even something sweet for special occasions, such as Papa's birthday and Be Nice to Mice Day. In fact, said Papa, life would be just about perfect, if only we weren't so... So what? Moses asked. Bored, Mama sighed. Bored stiff, squealed Papa. Bored to tears, yipped Missy. When I'm bored, Moses said, look what I do. He pulled 3 pebbles from his pocket. Catch a toss, catch a toss, catch a toss. Everyone clack, 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 clack. When Moses sang a whistly song that sounded like wind through the corn, everyone cheered. Then Moses began to twirl and skitter. He grabbed Missy by the hand, then Missy grabbed Mama, and Mama joined hands with Papa. Skitter and twirl, twirl and skitter. Together they danced round and round. Before long, everyone was giggling and out of breath. Oops. And ever after all snowy season long, the words, I am bored, were never heard again. Missy juggled corn. Papa sang a song that sounded like snow creaking on the roof. Mama spun and dipped. In fact, everyone was having such a good time that Moses was the only one who noticed when spring arrived. Yay. All right, got another song for you now. Hope you enjoyed that Pebbles in a Song. And here's a song. Hit it, Brody. Hey everyone, I'm joined by my husband Creighton Irons over here on the piano. And please sing along with us if you can. Here we go. If the Spirit moves you. Swim when the Spirit says swim.
hope I'm unmuted. Hi, thank you. I'm going to stomp. As we close now, we close the chalice light. I've kept it here since I lit it, and I can't close it. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, or the warmth of our community, or the fire of our commitment. All of these, we carry in our hearts until we all meet together again. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to close with a reading by Mary Oliver. It's called To Begin with the Sweet Grass. Let me share. It's seven parts long. Will the hungry ox stand in the field and not eat of the sweet grass? Will the owl bite off its own wings? Will the lark forget to lift its body in the air or forget to sing? Will the rivers run upstream? Behold, I say, behold, the reliability and the finery and the teachings of this gritty earth gift. Eat bread and understand comfort. Drink water and understand delight. Visit the garden where the scarlet trumpets are opening their bodies for the hummingbirds, who are drinking the sweetness, who are thrillingly gluttonous. For one thing leads to another. Soon you will notice how stones shine underfoot. Eventually, tides will be the only calendar you believe in. And someone's face, whom you love, will be as a star, both intimate and ultimate. And you will be both heart-shaken and respectful. And you will hear the air itself like a beloved whisper, "Oh, let me for a while longer enter the two beautiful bodies of your lungs." The witchery of living is my whole conversation with you, my darlings. All I can tell you is what I know. Look and look again. This world is not just a little thrill for the eyes. It's more than bones. It's more than the delicate wrist with its personal pulse. It's more than the beating of the single heart. It's praising. It's giving until the giving feels like receiving. You have a life. Just imagine that. You have this day, and maybe another, and maybe still another. Someday I'm going to ask my friend Paulus, the dancer, the potter, to make me a begging bowl, which I believe my soul needs. And if I come to you, to the door of your comfortable house, with unwashed clothes and unclean fingernails, will you put something into it? I would like to take this chance. I would like to give you this chance. We do one thing or another. We stay the same or we change. Congratulations if you have changed. Let me ask you this. Do you also think that beauty exists for some fabulous reason? And if you have not been enchanted by this adventure, your life, what would do for you? What I loved in the beginning, I think, was mostly myself. Never mind that I had to, since somebody had to. That was many years ago. Since then, I have gone out from my confinements, though with difficulty. I mean the ones that are thought to rule my heart. I cast them out. I put them on the mush pile. They will be nourishment somehow. Everything is nourishment somehow or another. And I have become the child of the clouds and of hope. I have become the friend of the enemy, whoever that is. I have become older, and cherishing what I have learned, I have become younger. And what do I risk to tell you this, which is all I know? Love yourself, then forget it, then love the world.
Love her. Thank you all again for joining us. We had a really good time putting this together. I'm going to do one thing with you now that Danica and I have been doing with our friend Juana during our Sunday coffee hours. And it's called an embodiment prayer. And I would love for you to do it along with me. And there are just 4 motions. And I'll just, your hands cupped out like this, and then like this, and then over your heart, and then your arms stretched out wide. And you can close your eyes, and I will say one thing during the third position, and you can repeat after me. And we'll take one deep breath in between each position, and this is called the embodiment prayer. So the first one is awaiting. Allowing. Accepting. You can repeat after me. I am not in control. I do not know everything. And attending. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to close with one of my all-time favorite songs, and we've put it to some gorgeous inspired video footage from our friend, the artist Tanya Geis. And this is a piece of a video piece that she made a few years ago. And thank you, Tanya, for letting us share it. And everyone have a wonderful day. Thank you for coming.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and for you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people passing by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes,